Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in a temple court, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Don't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Luke 2:41 through 52. Her name was Karen, and she was Jewish. And I think part of my love of Judaism, I guess, maybe started there because I used to do everything with her and with her family. So if she went to synagogue, I went with her, and I can remember like it was yesterday that she had her bat mitzvah. And I can remember that, I think, mostly because it was the first time I was ever away from my parents. I went with her and her family, and my parents did not go to the bat mitzvah. And I felt like a grown-up, right, you know, and I can remember walking around. She had it in a kind of like a hotel, but it had a courtyard, and I just meandered around the entire day. I just walked around. Nobody really watched me, so I'm like, and I probably was about 10 years old, 10 or 11 years old. I was a little younger than her. And what I really remember was, it was the first time I ever saw a crepe station. So crepes being made in front of me. I didn't even know what a crepe was, to be honest with you. So this was really exciting that they were making it in front of me and putting in berries and chocolate. I was like, I think I probably stayed by the crepe station most of the day. But it was very exciting. It was really, like I said, one of the first times I can remember feeling like a grown-up, you know. And by the end of the day, though, or the evening, I stayed later than everybody else, right? Because I was with the parents of the bar mitzvah girl, so I had to stay there till the end. I can remember thinking, it was getting dark outside, and thinking, boy, I really want to go home. I miss my parents. I started missing them. So that day has always stuck with me. But in our Bible reading today, we see that Jesus is 12 years old, it says, and he is alone in Jerusalem. Probably feeling like, you know, for this first time in a great big city, feeling kind of like a grown-up like I did there. And many people think that the reason why they give the 12 years old in the story is because it's significant to the story. It is and it isn't in some way, and we're going to kind of see that. The reason why they think that is because they think Jesus maybe was a bar mitzvah, a boy of the age. So let me explain that. A bar, the word bar means son of. The word bat means daughter of. And mitzvah means the law, so of the Torah, of the first five books of the Bible. And at 12 years old, Jewish boys and girls become bar or bat mitzvahs. And so Jesus, 12 years old, was about the same age as I was in the story. I was a little, like I said, a little bit younger. The thing was that we have to be cautious to imply that Jesus was becoming a bar mitzvah in this story, because there was no such thing as a bar mitzvah, or definitely a bat mitzvah, at this time. There wasn't anything like that. So when people say, oh, the 12 is significant, there is some significance to it, but not that he was becoming a bar mitzvah. He was something that we can say was becoming mature enough, obviously, because he was allowed to be alone in the big city because the parents weren't around, right? They misplaced him somewhere. He was going around somewhere. But let's break that down and see what's going on. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Joseph and Mary were obedient Jews. They went to the temple and they did that cleansing ritual, right? And they presented Jesus to the temple. And that's all the laws of Moses. They have to do those things. And in that verse, Jesus was 40 days old. And we know that because we went all the way back to Leviticus that said a woman who gives birth to a boy is considered clean at 40 days and then can enter the temple. So Jesus is about a month and a half at that story. Then we jump up to this, and now we see Jesus is 12 years old. But the same thing is happening with Joseph and Mary and Jesus, the whole entire family. They're obedient Jews. Now they're on their way, or they're in Jerusalem for the Passover feast. They're listening to the laws. And what's happening here is when they travel like that, well, let me explain it like this. You know, Cape May County, it's just a small little community like this, and everybody knows everybody. You can go to the store and know everybody, right? Well, most of you guys are related to one another. But what happens in the summer, right? It goes from that small little community to bam! Pretty soon it's like everybody's, you can go in the store and you can't recognize anybody. And that's what Jerusalem was like. Jerusalem was kind of a small little place and everybody knew everybody. And then when Passover came and everybody had to go to Jerusalem, it suddenly was that big city where nobody knew anybody else. So when Joseph and Mary bring Jesus there, they're not bringing it just with Joseph and Mary and the brothers. They're going with a whole group of people. I mean a lot of people, family and friends. And they travel on foot to get to Jerusalem. But everybody else is doing the same thing. So when you're traveling to get to Jerusalem, you're not by yourself. You're with big groups of people. And so this is what's happening, if you can imagine it. So they get there and they do what they have to do. And Jesus is becoming mature. He's 12 years old. And I want you to understand this. Even though there was no bar mitzvah, right, he's pretty mature in the Torah at this point. And he's probably allowed to be part of temple worship and the festivals that are going on. Even if Jesus started at 5 years old studying the Torah, okay, and he was studying the prophets, but the Torah, the Jews have a very strict reading schedule. And every year they read all 5 books of the Bible from the beginning of the new year to the end of that year, starting with Rosh Hashanah, I believe. They begin that year reading it, and they end it the same time, same verses, same thing. So if he started at 5 and he's 12 years old, that means 7 times he has read that Torah. And not only read it, but he's memorized it. He's remembering this. This is what their law is. You must remember the Torah. So he's pretty mature. He's ready for this. So Joseph and Mary, they let him go. He's walking around Jerusalem, I can imagine. And it's time to go. And they assume that Jesus is somewhere in this big crowd of family and friends. And they start walking back, and they're a day's journey, right? And all of a sudden they start saying, well, we haven't seen Jesus in a while. And they start asking family, have you seen Jesus? Have you seen Jesus? Where is he? Where is he? And now they start to panic. I can imagine that as a parent, they start to panic now. Where is he? And now they have to go back. Not only are they a day away from Jerusalem, now they have to get back to Jerusalem, which takes another day. And we have to take ourselves out of today's mindset. There's no texting, calling, emailing, taking a cab. You have to walk a whole day back. And I can't even imagine their anxiety as they're walking back. Like, we gotta rush, we gotta go, come on, Joseph, there's no time, we gotta go. So, there they go. They go back, and they find that Jesus, is talking to the elders of the temple. And something's happening. He's telling them about the laws and the rules and the Torah, and they're amazed by his wisdom. So obviously, Jesus has been taught well. And he's sitting there, and I can imagine, and this is just my motherly imagination, I guess. I can imagine Mary running up to him, and she kind of scolds him. She says, how dare you do this to us, Jesus? You've made us anxious. You made us worried. What in the world? And maybe she was kissing him and hugging him and, grabbing on, maybe embarrassing him a little bit in front of the elders of the law. And, he's trying to feel grown up. He's trying to feel mature. And here he is being asked, what are you doing? And he responds back to them. He says, I don't know why you're so anxious. I don't know why you're so worried. He says, why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Another way of saying that is, didn't you know I had to be about God's business, my Father's business? So that's what he's telling about. That's what he tells his parents. And it says something about that when afterwards it says Mary treasures that. Whenever it says that, a couple of times in the Bible it says that. She takes that and she thinks about it, if that makes sense. Does somebody ever tell you something and you don't have a response right away, but you think about it, and you're like, and you maybe are worried about it. And that's sort of what's happening with what's going on here. Mary's worried about it. She's wondering, what does this mean? So two important things have happened here in this story. One is that Jesus proclaims, and this is very powerful for the first time ever, that he's the Son of God. He's the Messiah. That's very important and very powerful. The second thing is Jesus boldly declares his purpose. And what's his purpose? To be about his Father's business. To be about what the will is that God has put in him, his call. Okay? That's also just as powerful. And this is what I want you to understand. This story is not only about Jesus, and we read it in the Bible. Believe it or not, this story is about each and every one of you. Okay? Because let me tell you this, you are made in the image of God. So this is what it says in Genesis 1:26 through 27. It says, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them, male and female, he created them. You know what this means? This means you are the children of God. And you also have to not only proclaim this, as Jesus proclaimed it in that temple to his parents, but then you have to say, I have a purpose. I have a call. God doesn't just make us to go to work, pay taxes, and die. I mean, that just is very limiting, isn't it? God has created us for a reason, for a purpose, his good work, his will. What is that? To share the good news of his saving grace through Jesus Christ. You know, this year more than ever, we have to declare this to other people. This is what we must do. We have to be, and I keep on saying it, that positive force in all the darkness, that light in the darkness. When I started my journey of becoming a pastor, I went to my pastor, and the first thing that I got was this little book. And it said, I can't even remember the exact title, but it was like, all Christians are ministers or something to that effect. And I was all excited. I was like, yeah, I'm going to read this. This is my first step into the journey of becoming a pastor. And I started reading it, and the more I read it, it was like, it said, everybody is a minister. Everybody has a call. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a job to do for God. And I thought, well, this is a little, discouraging. Maybe they don't want me to, they're trying to discourage me not to be a pastor. Just think I can. And they gave you other options. You could be a lay leader. You could be a musician. You could be a this. You could be a that. You could do all kinds of things for God. You don't have to slap the name pastor in front of your name to be something special in the church. Everybody is a minister. That's what it was trying to say. And I found beauty in that when I started understanding what they were trying to say. Everybody has a call. Everybody is special in the sight of God. So that means that every single one of you is a minister. Isn't that something? You all have that same purpose. We all have that same purpose. So what do? You go out from here and you find what it is. Now, some people may have an easier time finding what that is, what the call is. You have a talent, Jen, for playing the piano, right? Or the organ, whatever it is. That's spreading God's word. So it's easy for you to find your purpose because you're using it. But for some people, maybe it isn't easy. Maybe you haven't found that yet, right? And that's okay. It says, knock and you shall receive. And when we don't say knock and you get a car, right? Knock, 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 I need a car, and you get a car. It's not what it's about. Knock, give me wisdom, Lord, and you'll have wisdom. Knock, show me the gifts that you want me to use, and you'll get the gifts that you can use. Knock, show me the purpose, God, that you want for me in this world, and you'll get that purpose. That's the challenge that I want you to do. This year, make it your mission to find out what God's call is for you, what your purpose is. And don't be afraid of it. Let me tell you, I've been through some very scary moments in my path to finding God's call.
right? I have a lot of faith sometimes in what I have to do because there are things that I wouldn't naturally do. I don't want to spend a lot of money on school, right? But God gives me the ability to do that. He always does. When I have to travel somewhere, I have to find a school to go to. That's a good example of the school that I'm going to. I found a school that's an hour away from my aunt, right? These are all things that God will give you when you need them most. And so when you're trying to find that, don't be afraid. Go forward. Ask God to show you your purpose. And let me tell you something, He will provide for you so that you can be the ministers that you are supposed to be and live according to His purpose. Amen.
Amen.